what could the governor have done to make it known that this had nothing to do with race, and instead it became entirely about race? What could he have done?
Well, you have a mixed race group of officers that responded that day. That was conveniently left out, and I think it was because they hid the body camera footage. You have all four officers in Tutow and Thomas Lane and Alex King, in Derek Chauvin, that are there. But let's talk about just the beginning. You have Thomas Lane and Alex King, both just on the job for a few days. Alex King, who is black, who is actually the arresting officer. Isn't his story interesting? A Minneapolis kid, kind of dreams of being a police officer, and this is one of his very first few days, and Tim Walz has no problem just throwing him in prison. You have these officers who are in the body camera footage talking about how they're going to do the MRT. This is there. This is on the audio. You can hear it clear as day, and that they're doing this trained technique that's been a part of training for decades. And our leaders lie about that they don't recognize this technique. This is not how they train. They lie, under oath. But instead, you have a very pandering message by Governor Walz and company. It just takes a turn that it simply did not have to, because the facts don't support that. This isn't a story about, clearly, has police brutality been an issue? Sure. Or have there been, use of force cases that have gone too far? Absolutely. And this is why, to a police officer, I'm made into, of course, she is an axe to grind, or she has a bias. That's not this story. The story here is the truth. That was not told. You see an interaction with George Floyd where these officers are asking him questions. He's lying about all his responses. You have an interaction with George Floyd almost exactly a year earlier that went down the exact same way, where he's saying the exact same things. But instead of coming clean and saying, you know what, he was the subject of an undercover drug investigation, George Floyd was, the leaders in Minnesota say, nope, we've never heard of him. We've never had anything to do with him. But wouldn't that have been interesting if a couple days after this happened, you know what, here he is in this same situation, being arrested. Here's his criminal history, which does play a part, whether people want to believe that or not. There is just so much here that they could have calmed a lot of this. And I still hear from people to this day. I mean, the documentary has been out for 8 or 9 months now, but they write me and say that, or there's many comments on YouTube or Rumble or whatnot. Just, gosh, I just wish I would have, been told the truth. And it was all right there from the beginning.
Yes. Oh, gosh, there's so much there. I want to reflect on, again, just that the arresting officer was black. What? All the body camera footage, the previous arrest, all that stuff's so important. I want to reflect on it, but I want to keep moving forward too. Why do you think, ideologically, Tim Walz, the governor, went along with Black Lives Matter and went that route, as opposed to what you articulated could have happened?
Yeah, I think that when you look at his record, I know Hank spoke to you at great length about this also. You have someone that has had questionable character for a very long time. This really comes as no surprise to me that Tim Walz was selected even as this. Again, I think what's surprising is now that the media is trying to do what they should have been doing years ago to expose a lot of this. But let's take a look even at his, military service, which has finally come to light, which Alpha News broke years ago that, nobody was paying attention to. And now all of our stories are going viral, which is good. But we tried to get the word out before, he ran for governor this stolen valor issue. He is a masterful liar. Those are not my words. I have interviewed several people that have said this about him. He's a very good liar. Before the documentary, I put out a book called They're Lying, The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. And Governor Walz is a big part of the they. Even in the after of George Floyd, he put out a proclamation basically talking about how Minnesota is racist and everybody needed to spend 9 minutes and 30 seconds. That was, the time, which changed all over the place, to reflect on their racism and honor George Floyd. This was school children in Minnesota as well. Well, this is a straight lie. I mean, he knows what he's saying is again, this incident, which has nothing to do with race. People made it about that when he could have easily just said that and told the truth. So I think he's easy to manipulate. We've seen that on many subjects over and over again. I do a lot of reporting at Alpha News about law enforcement issues. But I think something that also hasn't been discussed much on a national level just yet is we've lost 5 first responders in a 13-month period in Minnesota. The last being Jamal Mitchell, who was a Minneapolis police officer who was murdered in the street in the middle of the day in May. That's never happened before. 5 first responders, 4 police officers, 1 is a fire medic. He has allowed lawlessness all across the state and encouraged crime. He has thrown now 6 police officers in total in prison on his watch. These are people who were doing their job or even following their training. This is, the 4 police officers with Floyd, but there's been other cases as well. But just more recently, there was a Minnesota state trooper charged with murder for following his training. And rather than meeting with the state trooper, basically this is a situation where this is a wanted felon pulled over in the middle of the night who's not complying. There's a state trooper on the driver's side that gets sort of stuck in his vehicle. He's trying to drive off onto a very busy interstate. This other state trooper shoots him, and sadly he passes away. But basically, he saved his partner's life in that moment. Hennepin County attorney charges this trooper with murder anyway. For months, the largest police organization tries to write to Walz and say, hey, you need to take this case away from the very left-leaning Hennepin County attorney. There's no evidence here. He followed his training. This is exactly what he's supposed to do. Governor Walz does not respond. Instead, Walz meets with Ricky Cobb's family, the person who was about to, kill the state trooper. What kind of message do you think that sends? But this is what he does over and over again, putting criminals on pedestals and going ahead and, making the police and law enforcement agencies across the state into the bad guys. This is part of his makeup. So I think he's perfect for that position. But what I also think is interesting is how he's trying to paint himself as this moderate and aw shucks dad jokes guy. But I think that goes into, this lying nature that he's had clearly for years.
Oh, my goodness. I cannot wait to look more into that story you just shared there. That's wild. I want to get these facts right. So in the most recent 13 months, or are you saying in a 13-month period that included the George Floyd?
No, this is just in the last, the last officer being murdered just in May, so 13 months before that. And I am honestly sure that it's going to it's just a matter of time until it happens again. That's how confident people here feel, because it's that sickening. I grew up here. I'm from Minnesota, and thousands of people have been leaving every year over the last 5-6 years, and I think there's a direct tie to Walz. He's not very well liked from the people I talked to in my reporting, that's for sure.
No. So I want to get this better. 5 first responders have been murdered, shot and killed in Minnesota?
Yes, that's right. So this was April of 23, basically until May of 24, starting with Polk County Deputy Josh Owen. And his wife actually spoke to me in an interview after his death that she knew this was after Floyd. He has this in his mind that, gosh, if I do the wrong thing, I go to prison, or if I make a mistake. So he was talking about leaving law enforcement, because these are the conversations these families are having with these leaders in charge of this state, especially Walz, who has sat back and done nothing instead of, taking a stand for law enforcement. So it starts with him. And then there are 2 Burnsville police officers in Matthew Ruge and Adam Finseth, who is a fire medic, and Paul Elmstrand, that respond to a scene, an hours-long standoff that takes place. There's a black man inside with children, and this hours-long standoff drags out, and this man is saying, you're going to just come in here and kill unarmed black men because that's what you do. Because again, there's this, thing that this is what they perpetuate, and he kills all of them basically through a window. It's just this horrific scene. All three of them die. Great men, fathers. It's absolutely awful. And then we just have Minneapolis police officer Jamal Mitchell, who responds to a scene in a city where that has lost 50% of their police force. And I think Governor Walz played a direct role in that. Responds to an active shooter scene, and he thinks that the shooter, who is laying in the ground, he's laying on the ground because he'd been hit by a car. Let me just tell you about this scene, because this is also something that I think this is what Minneapolis has turned into. This is a man who goes in over a drug deal, from what I understand, shoots and kills two people in an apartment. People are calling 911 that they're hearing shots. It's an active shooter. The police are on their way. Jamal Mitchell responds. He is in a single squad, which never used to happen because there were enough cops to, have two at a time. In the meantime, the shooter has made it down the block and tries to carjack, if that's what it's called, a moped, gets on a moped to try to drive away. Well, somebody driving a car sees this happening, runs over the shooter to get him to stop. Now, keep in mind, before all of this defund the police deal, would have been about 30 seconds for police to respond. 4 two-man squads would have been there. Instead, you have Jamal Mitchell, who comes to the scene by himself, because there are no cops anymore, and it takes a couple minutes to get there. This isn't a quick response, because that really isn't even possible anymore. And I think there's some confusion on the scene as to this active shooter. He sees a guy on the ground, and he goes to treat him, and that is the shooter, who then pops up and kills Officer Mitchell. This is how horrific.
Come on.
And this is 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday. It is completely unreal. The wild, wild west. And this is the last officer to die here. But hopefully, I think more
that is directly connected to Walz. Like, that is such an obvious failure of leadership from George Floyd down, and here's the ramifications of it. Like, there's no question. That's such a direct line.